Love Iris is the story of Iris, who is 95 years old, and of her granddaughter Tess, 35, newly pregnant in a not entirely planned and joyous way. Iris has dementia, and Tess is having to take the difficult decisions involved in caring for someone with dementia. At the nursing home she moves Iris into, she meets JUDY, who is a middle-aged empty nester with a whole raft of stories of her own. I always like to write about women of different ages and stages. For me, that's a given if I'm sitting down to plot a novel. I was quite interested in the idea of writing about somebody with dementia. I was sort of captivated by the idea that their secrets and their stories and their histories are not so much lost for good, but trapped in their minds by this horrible, insidious illness. So that nugget started, and I was able to use the device of the home where Iris is cared for and Gigi's father-in-law James is cared for to bring the women together and to mesh the stories up that way. So it all sort of started with that one idea and built off of it. Gigi is my favourite character, probably because we are the same age and stage. I'm a new empty nester and very thoroughly middle-aged, and so I think some of her sensibilities and some of her attitudes come easier to me, which makes her the kind of character who kind of tends to write herself and who you would really wish was real, that you could go out for lunch with. I don't really have a favourite moment to write. I really enjoyed writing the moments of lucidity when Iris is ill and she mostly doesn't know who anyone is or what's happening. But very occasionally the clouds part on her illness and she becomes the Iris that she always was again, and she has some beautiful moments, but to me they felt beautiful moments, with her granddaughter Tess, and they felt like they were bringing some joy to Tess, which I really enjoyed writing, but I also really enjoyed my ending. It made me happy. I normally write at the kitchen table, surrounded by noise and mess in various different houses that we've lived in. I've had offices, but I never write in them in the end. They just become places where I keep my books and avoid, and I always end up creeping back into the kitchen with my laptop. I don't have any writing rituals. I wish I did, because they'd be another great way of procrastinating. If I could sort of sit and sharpen 10 pencils before I started. I normally start in the middle of a scene, and I normally decide what mood I'm in, and then I find a scene that I know I want to write that corresponds best with my mood. So sometimes I influence my mood with music, and sometimes my mood is just my mood, and that creates the scene that I'm going to write that day. I don't read a lot of fiction when I'm writing. I find it sort of muddles my brain slightly. So I read mostly non-fiction when I'm in a period of high productivity. The best fiction book I read this year, I read for my book group, and it was Little Fires Everywhere, which I thoroughly recommend. On my table waiting to be started is Michelle Obama's book Becoming, which I've bought a copy of for both of my daughters and my cousin, because I've heard such good things about it. But the book I've probably spent the most time with this year is a big Tash and coffee table book, which is called Food and Drink Infographics, which is just absolutely chocker full of extraordinary facts about all things food and drink. And I sit, most days and learn something astonishing about Iberico ham or eggs.